Not bad. It's gonna get down in the 20s tonight, though. I just got. I will.
Kind of nice, huh?
Well, except for I'm moving, so
So
sweat like a dog.
It'll take a couple minutes till Derek and Karen are signing vouchers. Ooh, I got the big chair. It's too big. I can't. They don't want it.
there was no resolution that said it was theirs.
I never remembered that. I don't remember that at all.
They have the resolution, they said, that doesn't say anything about it being theirs.
Their problem.
Well, is that?
Yeah, but the sanitary and the electric is on their land too, and it's ours. Have to explain that to the church.
Places out there.
Oh, yeah. I don't know.
You ready here?
French?
Okay, I'd like to call the Common Council meeting for October 16th to order. Has it been appropriately noticed?
Yes, Your Honor, it has.
Please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Alderman Zwart.
Here.
Gray.
Here.
Alderman Kavieski.
Here.
Alderman Miller.
Here.
Alderman Rozak. Alderman Shaw.
Here.
Alderman Ellis.
Here.
Alderman Spiegelberg.
Here.
First item on the agenda tonight is the public hearing. The purpose of the hearing is to hear public comment on the application of Christy Kumar for a conditional use permit to operate You and Your Dog at 1265 Corporate Center Drive. The purpose of the CUP would allow for a commercial kennel per the table of allowable uses listed in section 17.106 of the Economic Zoning Code. The commercial kennel use requires a CUP in the general commercial zoning district. Jason?
Thank you, Mayor. As you just mentioned, we're having a public hearing for You and Your Dog. It's a commercial animal training and boarding facility at 1265 Corporate Center Drive. So this is a conditional use permit, meaning it's an allowed use in that district, but it's a special type of use that the Common Council chooses to review these on an individual basis. The applicant is Christy Kumar. She's the operator. She is unavailable to be here this evening, but she does have representation of her parents, who are Jim and Cindy Kumar. They've been in the business for a very long time, and Christy informed me that they are very aware of all of the operations of the business. Our zoning ordinance requires that dog daycares, training, and commercial boarding kennels require a conditional use permit in this particular commercial zoning district. The property is located off of Valley Road and Corporate Center Drive. It's highlighted with the red X's there. You can see it's kind of one parcel in from Summit Avenue. Currently has an existing building on it. It was a former child daycare center. It has a parking lot that hosts about 25 vehicles. The access is something worthy to be noted. It comes in off of Corporate Drive on the property to the south. There's property easements to get into the property parking lot. The northern access point to Corporate Center Drive is an exit only because there's an island there, a median that blocks you from going left. It's a right out only heading north to Valley Road. There is some hard surface area that would become outdoor fenced area as well as to the north, and there's some trees. There's also a standalone AT&T building to the east part of the property, and there's a separate easement document that defines that area as well. This is for an outdoor dog area with outdoor dogs. There could be concerns, so I made a graphic here showing the closest residential areas in the city. We have Village Crossing, those duplexes that are under construction right now at about 2,400 lineal feet. Next closest would be Briarwood subdivision at about 3,700. And then depending on where you measure, Eastlake Village is 4,100. So these are, all of them are over a half a mile away from the facility. Staff feels it's actually a very good spot for a commercial kennel because of the distance. So the Plan Commission did review this back on October 10th. They did recommend this to the Common Council for approval of the conditional use permit. Tonight we're holding the public hearing. That's what we're doing right now. And it is on the agenda for action on the agenda later this evening. As you know, the conditional use process in order to grant these have changed. The new standards is that the new law says that it has to meet standards in order for you to grant. I looked at the standards that the city has on their ordinances, and we have noise relating specifically to that barking dogs. We have outdoor activities that are regulated. We have fencing standards, preservation of trees. We have some fire protection and trash disposal standards. So keeping those in mind, I'd like to talk a little bit about the building. Again, here it is, the existing building floor plan, and then what they're asking for is some fencing. The proposed site plan, here it is, shown in orange is the outdoor fenced areas. They are going to fence those in their application. They state a 6-foot tall solid fence. It was confirmed with the Plan Commission that it will be a cedar type fencing material, so the dogs will not be able to see through the fences. During the Plan Commission, we discussed a variety of topics. The Corporate Park Association did review and approve this. It is part of our corporate park. So there's an email in your packets from the corporate park representatives. Access to the site is through a recorded easement that's for access. Staff does have a copy of the recorded easement document from 1994. The fencing we discussed is to be solid, 6 foot tall. The existing trees on site, and again, I would like to show those, are to be preserved. That is a condition in the conditional use. There's a nice buffer between Valley Road and the proposed fencing area. The fencing area that she shows on the site plans would probably have to be a little bit smaller for the one to the north to save those trees. The dog waste, we talked a little bit about that. With this volume of dogs, there's going to be a lot of waste created. They said they would be picking that up immediately, and then it will be put in sealed containers. And then the dogs are to be monitored and supervised when outside. There is overnight boarding. They are going to have some staff there in evening hours. They will be letting them out, but the staff will go outside with them. So the Plan Commission did send forward to approve the conditional use with the approvals. I think what I'd like to do at this time is go through the standards and then have the applicants, as we've done in the past, respond to these. Regarding noise, the city has noise and nuisance laws for public barking. The police have issued tickets for barking dogs. So there is some standards that we have for decibel levels and public nuisance. Outdoor activities, the city allows up to 15 dogs outside at any given one time. So that should be adhered to. That is a condition in their conditional use permit. Regarding the fencing, we have a maximum fence height of up to 6 feet tall, and that's what they are proposing. They cannot exceed that. Preservation of trees, we have ordinances that say that any mature trees should be, every effort should be made to keep those trees, and if they do have to remove them, they would have to replace the trees on site. So they are required to keep the trees since they're not showing any new ones. And then fire protection, we do have fire and building codes, so they would have to adhere to those. And then finally, the trash disposal, specifically regarding dog waste, we have some odor and other requirements about disposal of waste must be picked up. So with that, the Common Council must determine the applicant's shown substantial evidence. I guess I'd like to call up a representative just to walk you through what they're going to do on how they can meet all those requirements.
Good evening. I'm Jim Coomer. I'm Christy Coomer's father, and that's Cindy, her mother, in the back. Christy apologizes that she's traveling out west for a national dog show out in California, and she's about 3 years overdue for a vacation, so we did everything we could to help her out. As Jason said, more so Cindy and Christy have been into the dog businesses for pretty much all their lives. So I'm just the support member to the group, but they've been involved. And in fact, my wife is in the process of developing a very similar project to this for daycare, boarding, and possibly grooming. And so very familiar with these kinds of activities. Noise, of course, is a hugely important concern for you and the people that are around the site. And in fact, it's very important inside the business to manage noise because it's very hard to work in an environment with a lot of noise. So one of the nice things about the approach that Christy is taking on this business is that the core of their business is actually training, right? And so a lot of these facilities, you know, you're just bringing in dogs and they're spending time, kind of just spending time, and that's where barking can start occurring. But in a training program, you're constantly working with the dogs, right? And so noise and barking actually is a very trainable thing, right? So the fact that you have professional trainers managing noise, I'm fully confident. In fact, Cindy, who wasn't going to do training, was going to bring in trainers to train the dog handlers for that same purpose, to manage noise. So noise is something that's very manageable. In regards to the noise that's probably most likely to be noticed would be outdoors. Most of the business is really going to be indoors, right? So most of the training, the boarding, they have something they call, it's like daycare, but in their case, they're doing training throughout the daycare. So the dogs are very active. So the outdoor is really primarily for potty breaks, right? So it's not a significant amount of the business is going to be done outdoors. And when they go outdoors, it's going to be in small numbers, groups of maybe 5 to 10 at the most, and they will always be managed with a handler. And again, these are going to be extremely well-qualified handlers. So I would really have, if I were in your shoes, I'd have little concern about noise. Do I keep rolling or take questions? Jason? Keep going, okay. Again, for the outdoor activities, primarily taking dogs out for potty. I'm sure on a very nice day they might use a little time outdoors for a little exercise, but again, they will always be supervised with at least one person with that group of dogs. Fencing, as Jason stated, the plan is to use a 6-foot cedar privacy fence. And that, in fact, will also help with noise, because the thing that usually gets dogs barking potentially is if they see things around them. So with a privacy fence, they really won't see anything happening around them outside of the facility. So once again, I think that fencing goes hand in hand with managing the noise. Preservation of trees, that's not a problem. Christy does not plan to do anything to remove the trees, so she's happy to preserve the trees. Fire protection, the intention is to comply with all codes and permits and have building inspections and regular I think fire is an annual inspection, I believe, so follow regular annual inspections. She, in fact, is planning to have a fire and security service, so it will actually be monitored, I think, above and beyond. Mike, the building owner, is here, and he told me that this building, again, previously was used for daycare, so you can imagine that the fire protection is to the maximum standards. Trash disposal, as Jason said, Christy intends to use sealed bags. In fact, she's going to do double bagging, so just like you see people doing dog walks, or if you have dogs, when you walk dogs, you use the small bag, and that will be sealed and tied, and then they're going to put those bags inside of 5-gallon buckets, and those bags will be sealed and tied. So they are going the extra step to ensure cleanliness and healthy conditions for the dogs.
Okay.
Okay, we're done with the back and forth. If anyone else wants to speak.
Anybody has any questions, or if the public has any questions? Public hearing.
Okay, any questions for the applicant? Charlie?
Yeah, as far as the boarding part of it, how many dogs are we going to be boarding overnight? Because I thought there were some discussions that that number was going to be 3 overnight, but I'm not seeing that in the conditional use permit at all. What's the maximum amount you would be boarding?
So I believe, and Mike or Jason, I'm not sure what I think the maximum number would be whatever the request is for maximum dogs on the site.
Yeah, they did not provide a maximum. The number 3 that you referred to is the Plan Commission talked about no more than 3 dogs outside at a time in the evening hours.
Non-business hours.
In the non-business hours.
Okay.
But the area itself, the building is a sizable building, and they have a lot of room identified for dog lodging, they call it. So I'm assuming the number is going to be could be quite high.
So my wife just interjected, and she may even be communicating with Christy that it's 20 maximum. They expect 15 to 20. Boarding is not the main part of their business. It's really the training. And then they do this daily balance, which is daycare with constant training and activity. And so boarding is more for, and they really reserve boarding for the people that are doing training. So they don't really plan to offer boarding for boarding's sake, but if you are coming in for training, and they do have an advanced level of training where they'll take a dog and keep it for 2 weeks and board it while they're doing intensive training. So boarding isn't the mainstay of the business, but 20 is the expected max.
Any other questions?
Just a comment. I believe they said somebody would be on site 24/7 too. Is that correct?
So
There would always be somebody on site, even at night, there'd be somebody there?
The intention is that when the business is big enough that they would have around the clock, but in the beginning, it could be that there might be dogs boarded without people there 24/7, but the people would come 1 to 2 times through the night to check up on them and potty them.
Okay.
There's a question in the back. Would you come up to the microphone?
Hi, I'm Cheryl Chu. I'm here on behalf of Leatheridge, which is on Corporate Center. It's going to be at the map at the bottom left, 1250 Corporate Center Drive. I'm a dog and cat lover. But my question is that we have a walking path on the south side of the building. You can't see it on that map, but it goes from that street, you know, right from where Leatheridge is straight across. A lot of people use it. We do see people bring their dogs. So my question is, are the dogs going to be contained in your property, or are you going to walk them? Because that walking path would probably be, and we don't want any dog waste on our property.
No, Christy informed me that they don't intend to take dogs outside of the property. And they don't want to have any negative impact throughout the corporate center, so it'll be all self-contained.
Kevin?
Just as a clarification, did I hear that there'll be no people on staff at night?
Not continuous in the beginning. So if they, say in month 3, have 5 dogs overnight, then the dogs there, what time did she say they'd be? Till 9:30 at night, someone would be there. And then I would expect that someone would come back once in the middle of the night to check on dogs and potty dogs. Then once and I'm not sure where the crossover point, I'm guessing when they get to 12 or 15 dogs, then they can probably justify a full-time 7x24 staff.
That's
They
not
will have cameras inside and external, so they'll be able to constantly check up on the dogs also remotely.
That's not uncommon for kennels not to have people there at night. You don't want to have stimulation for dogs in the evening. I mean, after a certain period of time, it's quiet. Any other questions?
My name is Yvonne Yankee, and I own the building next door, the Yankee Dental Clinic. Nice to meet you. And my concern is the noise. So how often do the dogs come out during the day? I mean, are they out for long periods of time during the day? And do your other businesses, because we're pretty close together, are you that close to other business, your other business? Are you close to other buildings?
So the business the version of this that my wife's working on, we had residential areas, houses within 400 feet. Christie's previous training facility was in a single building with 5 different tenants. So she shared a common building and never had a problem that tenants complained about noise. I mean, we have to be honest, there will be dogs that bark, right? So there will be barking, but it's not an incessant, continuous, annoying type of barking. The outdoor, again, is only for pottying, so that's generally done. If a dog's there a full day, I would expect that a dog gets pottied 3 to 4 times a day, typically, maybe a little more often if it's business is slow, but the potty exercise is typically a 5-minute exercise. Get out, do your business, clean up, and bring them back.
Kevin?
Will there be any kennels outside in these exercise areas?
No, all kennels are indoors.
So at any one point in time, there'll be no dogs outside in a kennel whatsoever?
Correct.
Any other questions? Go ahead.
As far as waste is concerned, my only concern there would be is the smell, especially if a lot of these businesses, which I do not know, are downwind.
So that's where, the standard in the business is a single sealed bag. So the waste is scooped up and put into a sealed bag. That's where Christie's going the extra step of double bagging. So a bag like you see when you walk, and those get tied, and those things tie really tight, so it's a good seal, and then another larger bag with all the bags in. So I think that smell is not going to be an issue.
Okay. Seeing no other questions, we'll close the public hearing. We'll move on to regular business, and then we'll get on to the conditional use permit when we get later in the meeting. Next item is approval of meeting minutes from September 18th, 2018. We need a motion to approve the minutes.
So moved.
Second. Motion and second. Any other questions? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes are passed. Next is comments and suggestions from citizens. If you have anything that you want to say on any subject, please fill out one of the blue cards at the podium. I'll call, I have 3 of them here. First one up is Floss Whalen.
Just 3 quick things. Excuse me, referring to the public safety building. One is I raised the question the last time I spoke on the issue about the sustainability of the building, and I want to thank our utility manager, Joe Pickard, who has spoken to me about what is intended for the building, and I will tell you he spoke to my concerns, and I feel good about that. The second thing I wanted to talk about was the need, because I know you're discussing options, the need to keep the building here in our downtown. There are a lot of people who have worked for a lot of years, and we see the downtown now finally at last being the dream we all had in mind. The police department, the public service facility, is a pillar of the community. The community expects that its community buildings will be in that downtown. And I think it would be a betrayal to all of us who expected it to be here, and to the private sector that you have encouraged to settle here, if you took the public service building and built it outside of the downtown. And the third thing I wanted to do was to say to Alderman Spiegelberg that I thought you were right on the mark when you suggested that the longer we waited, the more expensive the facility would get. In my 57 years of being an active observer and participant in this government, I have never seen a project, private or public, that was less expensive after being delayed or postponed. As a matter of fact, the opposite is true. The longer you wait on this, particularly now as we're looking at more interest increases coming from the Fed, the longer you wait on this, the more it's going to cost. It's time to make your decision and move ahead. Thank you.
Thank you. Ken Harrow.
It's ironic I follow that. Let's build what we need, not what we want. I don't think any of you know what we need. I say that because a few months after I left this council, all of a sudden we have had a $40,000 police station. There was no way you could have done the due diligence from the time I left to the time you all started talking about it. So, a police chief, absolutely I'm in favor of a police station. Everybody in the city is in favor of a police station. However, our community seems to build not what is best for the community, but what they can get away with. You know, the schools, the community centers. We need more thoughtful deliberation, because the easiest thing to do is take taxpayer money, build a building, and cut the ribbon. That's simple. The hard thing to do is to figure out where to put it, and I'm not going to tell you where to put it. But I do know that you have to study what we need. And I understand, you know, I've been watching from afar, not too far, but I'm not sure you know, it's those consultants are lovely. They give you what you want, but did any of you sit down and try to figure out what we needed? You should all take this opportunity to become experts in the police station for the future of Oconomowoc. We haven't, you know, what have we added? One head in the past 30 years? Something like that? We're not going to double the size of our police department in the next 50. What you may not know is I showed Chief Bagoon the Century Building years ago. He and I sat around and talked about it. It was a great discussion, but that building, it's so easy to say, well, if you don't want it for 13, how about 8? Okay, you just saved a bunch of money. But guess what? And you all know, experienced this. When you build something for less, all of a sudden later on, they're going to start adding on the things that we didn't include, like the baffles in the second floor of the community center or the downstairs. Looking at what we need. A few months ago, you all sat around and talked about dispatch, and you felt that we needed a dispatch. Oconomowoc growing, city government is growing, but as you grow, it's also an opportunity for you to shed responsibilities when appropriate. Dispatch is one of those opportunities. Explain to me why. If I'm having a heart attack, or if my house is on fire, I call and I get Waukesha County. But if there's a nuisance in my backyard, I'm to deal with the city of Oconomowoc. So let's say I pick up my cell phone right now. Let's say there's an armed robber. I pick up my cell phone and I get, you all know this, we get Waukesha County when you call 911. And what does Waukesha County do? They relay you back to the city of Oconomowoc. How long does that take? Anyone know? Up to 45 seconds? Again, it doesn't make sense that if I'm having a heart attack, it's okay to call with the Western Lakes, it's okay to use Waukesha County, but for a nuisance or a priority 1 call, we have to come to the city. There is a budget objective in the Waukesha County budget. A priority 1 police call, which is an armed robbery, let's say, something very violent. They want to get that call from the moment they take the call to passing it on to the police in a minute. That's their objective. What did they do in 2017? 36 seconds. That's how quick they can take it from the county to the local municipality. They dispatch for 70% of Waukesha County right now. Menominee Falls, City of Brookfield, Town of Brookfield, New Berlin, the most difficult community in Waukesha County, they've gone with Waukesha County Dispatch. You know, it's a matter of fiscal, I hate that word, fiscal responsibility, but really it is. You owe it to the taxpayer to reduce the size of our local government when appropriate, when we can deliver the service effectively in a different way. And this is it. And believe me, the people in our dispatch are great people. I've talked to them. When I simply give them my address, when I talk to them, they know exactly the problems we've had around my neighborhood. That's the local flavor we get with our local dispatch. But when you approve more subdivisions and more tall buildings, what goes along with that is making different parts of our government more efficient. And dispatch is absolutely one of those places to go. So $10 million, we don't know if that's the right number. I don't think it is. I haven't met one person in our community that thinks we should build a $10 million police station, but that's what your job is. You 8. No one's here to make that decision for you. You figure it out. You get the people in here that are going to tell you what to build and how much it should cost. And then when you can talk to me about it, I'll believe you. But so far from what I've read, it's made as instructed.
Jennifer Ames? No problem.
Jennifer Ames. I live at 721 Thackeray Trail, and I just wanted to really briefly just say that I am opposed vehemently to the extension of that road. I live at the corner of Thackeray and Emerson, and the new portion of the road that is proposed will go from Silver Lake to Emerson, which is my corner. I'm really nervous if it goes through about the increased traffic becoming a major thoroughfare for our city. I have small children that I worry about. And in response to that, I hear that sidewalks would be put in place to help with safety. Also, being on a corner, that would mean that I would be assessed for an entire corner's worth of sidewalk. A friend of mine recently had to have re-cement her corner on Wisconsin Avenue, and she was assessed $15,000. We are a quiet, middle-class neighborhood back there, and we really like it that way. We have a lovely boulevard, and it would be really detrimental to my family personally to have to fit that kind of bill for a sidewalk. I'm a taxpayer at my home, and I also own a small business handling 2 mortgages, and it would be a very heavy toll. So I guess I want to just kind of put a personal note on why I really don't want that to go through. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Seeing none, we'll move on with the agenda. Next item is the consent agenda. Tonight we have licenses, a budget amendment for grants and donations received July 1st to September 30th of 2018, and the treasurer's reports. We need a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved. Second.
Moved and seconded. Any questions? Seeing none, call the roll.
Alderman Zwart.
Aye.
Alderman Stray.
Aye.
Alderman Kavieski.
Aye.
Alderman Miller.
Aye.
Alderman Shaw.
Aye.
Alderman Ellis.
Aye.
Alderman Spiegelberg.
Aye.
Next item is under Protection and Welfare. It's consider an act on a resolution granting a new 2018-2019 Class B fermented malt beverage and Class C wine license to KGNMP Hotels LLC, which is the Staybridge Suites. We need a motion to approve the resolution.
I'll move to approve the resolution on the condition the clerk not issue that license until the actual date of closing.
Okay. Second. Moved and seconded. You want to present on this?
Yes.
You present on both of them and then.
Yes, I'll talk to both. Thank you, Mayor. The current owners, Pabst Farms Hospitality Units 1 and 2, are selling the Staybridge Suites and the Hilton Garden Inn. They are selling them to one gentleman, Kevin Patel, and he is looking to operate the businesses in the same manner that they are being operated right now, and that is with alcohol licenses. So the Staybridge Suites would operate, he's asking to continue to operate with the Class B beer and Class C wine license, and the Hilton Garden Inn with a full liquor license, which is a Class B. The current owners have asked that the granting of the licenses be conditioned upon a successful closing so that the clerk would not issue the license until they actually have a closing, which is anticipated to be October 31st. That way, there would be no interruption in the operation of the business, and also would allow the current owner to continue to be able to sell and serve alcoholic beverages. And then when the sale takes place, the new owner would be able to do that. The new owner meets all Chapter 12 and state licensing requirements, and therefore I recommend approval.
Diane, any questions? Kevin, you had a question earlier?
Yeah, I did. This Kevin Patel, do we know anything about him at all? Has he done this before or anything? And also, it says here, being approved as new agent by the Common Council. I need help on that. What is that referring to?
I'm sorry, where are you reading that?
I'm looking at the letter from Pabst Farms. I'm sorry.
Oh. Pabst had called me, Bill Neiman, the representative, and had asked how he should word the letter of surrender. So he needs to surrender the licenses because they are currently issued in the Pabst Farms Hospitality as the licensee. I had told him upon the successful closing, that way it would ensure the licenses stay with Pabst Farms, and that until the closing is successful, when the new owner would need the license. I'm not sure why he added that as being approved as a new agent. That is something he decided to do. I did not question him on that, but the paperwork, the license paperwork is all in order, and Kevin Patel would be the agent for both of the hotels, Staybridge Suites and the Hilton Garden Inn, which he is going to be the owner, and he is designating himself the agent. As far as what do I know about Kevin Patel, I do not know his background, but I do know that his LLCs comply with all the licensing requirements. I did not ask Pabst Farms about the owner, but he has been good to work with. He has made sure he has turned in everything that he needs to, and he has filled in everything. So he appears to have some experience because it has not been hard to work with him at all.
Because when I read this letter, and I don't know much about legalese or anything along those lines, but it almost makes it sound like we're approving him as the new agent.
That's required under Chapter 125. You have to name the agent.
Well, I understand you have to name the agent, but when I read this, it says that we are approving him as the new agent.
We are.
You are.
Okay.
That's exactly what you're doing.
That's what
Part
we
of the
do.
license paperwork,
Right.
the agent is named.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? So this is the first item, and then we'll take the second item up after we vote on the first. So we have a motion and a second on the Class B fermented malt and Class C for Staybridge. Do we, call the roll, please?
Okay. Alderman Zwart?
Aye.
Alderman Stray?
Aye.
Alderman Kavieski?
Aye.
Alderman Miller?
Aye.
Alderman Shaw?
Aye.
Alderman Ellis?
Aye.
Alderman Spiegelberg?
Aye.
Okay, next item is consider act on a resolution granting a new 2018 to 2019 Class B intoxicating liquor and fermented malt beverage license to KM Hotel LLC, which is for the Hilton Garden Inn. We need a motion to approve the resolution.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, so this is the second item, the Hilton Hotel instead of the Staybridge. Any questions?
Yeah, I got a quick question. Is that still on the condition the clerk not issue that license? Okay.
Correct.
Any other questions? Call the roll, please.
Alderman Zwart?
Aye.
Alderman Stray?
Aye.
Alderman Kavieski?
Aye.
Alderman Miller?
Aye.
Alderman Shaw?
Aye.
Alderman Ellis?
Aye.
Alderman Spiegelberg?
Aye.
Okay, the next item under public services, we're going to postpone till the next meeting. It has to be gone over by the attorney. Going to Finance Committee, there's a couple items. Consider acting a resolution authorizing the issuance and providing for the sale of $1,500,000 in general obligation promissory notes, Series 2018A for the street program. We need a motion to approve the resolution.
So moved.
Second.
Lori, do you want to just explain these two?
The first resolution for $1.5 million would be, this is your initial authorizing resolution. This is for 2018 street projects. We delayed the borrowing of this just to see where we were at before the end of the year and see if we could combine borrowings if we could. Right now, we're looking to get this taken care of before the end of the year. The initial resolution allows us to do the official statement and put out the bonds for sale. Once the bids come in, we'll be back to council to show you the bids, and you can vote on the bonding at that time.
Okay, good, thank you. Why don't you wait here for the next one, Kevin?
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion. We're not all here. We're 7 out of 8 individuals, and because this is a major project for the city, I'd like to make a motion that we postpone this until the next reading, until the next meeting.
That's really probably not something we can do because of the timing. Well, not the table, to postpone.
Well,
Two different things. Aren't they? There's a motion to postpone. Do we have a second? Seeing that we don't have a second, then we can go on, right? Okay. We had a motion to approve already, yes. We had a motion to approve. Any other questions on that motion?
We just want to verify that this is for this year's street projects. The money's already been spent, so
Right.
we need to pay for it. I think,
Right, understand.
This is
if
also
it was
the
for next
initial.
year's, I might have a problem with it, but not this year's.
Yeah, no, we're not gonna borrow the money before we spend it.
This is also the initial resolution. The final resolution will come back to council with the bid prices for interest.
Okay. Seeing no other questions, call the roll, please.
Alderman Zwart?
Aye.
Alderman Stray?
Aye.
Alderman Kavieski?
Aye.
Alderman Miller?
Aye.
Alderman Shaw?
Aye.
Alderman Ellis?
Aye.
Alderman Spiegelberg?
Aye.
Next item is consider act on initial resolution authorizing the borrowing of not to exceed 2.2 million and providing for the issuance of general obligation short-term note thereafter, levying a tax in connection therewith. This is for 630 East Wisconsin Avenue. We need a motion to approve the resolution.
So moved.
Second.
Lori, you want to explain that?
Yep, this $2.2 million borrowing will be short-term borrowing that we will do mainly to give the council flexibility to decide what they're going to do with the building that we purchased at 630 Wisconsin Avenue. This would be a interim financing. It's taxable financing. The interest rate will be higher than when we refund it, but this does give you flexibility to take your time to figure out what's going on with that building. Currently, I will be working with either the state trust fund loan or our current bank, depending on which one can come in with a better rate. This authorization allows me to go ahead and do that. Again, it's an initial authorization. I will bring back the closing documents to council for approval.
Thank you. Questions? Go ahead.
Just to clarify, we talked about this, but I want people to know that we can turn this into long-term once we decide on a plan. This could get converted
It can
to
be
long-term bonds.
refinanced.
Yes.
Yes, with the next year's borrowing, yes.
Kevin?
Once again, I'd like to make a motion to postpone this until all 8 of us are here. This is a major project for the city.
Is there a second? Seeing none, we will move on with the original motion. We have a motion and a second for approval of the resolution borrowing $2.2 million. Call the roll, please.
Alderman Zwart.
Aye.
Alderman Stray.
Aye.
Alderman Kavieski.
Aye.
Alderman Miller.
Aye.
Alderman Shaw.
Aye.
Alderman Ellis.
Aye.
Alderman Spiegelberg.
Aye.
Moving on to Plan Commission. Under Plan Commission, first item is consider act on conditional use permit for you and your dog at 1265 Corporate Center Drive. Jason, you want to give a little presentation first, and then we can vote on this.
We held a public hearing earlier this evening for this conditional use permit. This has gone through the Plan Commission review. Staff drafted a conditional use permit. It's in your packets. There is a total of 11 conditions. They do cover all the items that we discussed during the public hearing relating to noise, outdoor activities, the fencing, the preservation of trees, the fire protection, and the trash disposal. Again, the Plan Commission recommended it. Staff recommends that you grant the conditional use permit as drafted, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Do you have any questions? Go ahead, Mike.
The only question I had, where's the dumpster going to be? Because I would like that to be away from Dr. Yankee's office.
It is shown on the site plan. It is fairly close to her office.
Right. Can we get that? Because I don't care how you double bag, triple bag, bag, you're still going to get woof of.
On a hot day.
Yeah.
Not so bad in the wintertime, but
Right.
on a hot day.
If they show it on, they say they're not going to move it, and on the site plan, you can see it's right here. I mean, we could change the location of the dumpster, but you do need, to have truck access to it. So they maybe could put it on the north side inside the
Yeah, right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, right there.
so it has truck access
Right.
there, because they are doing a fenced area.
Right. I'm fine with it. They just move that over there.
But they would just have to change their fence a little bit.
They're talking about moving the dumpster to the north side of the building, or you want to come and speak to that, please?
I'm Mike Groll, and I'm one of the property owners for this proposed business. The current location of it was for where the location was when it was a daycare. So I think they had up to maybe 75, young children and babies there. So they were disposing, human waste in the dumpster for that whole time. And I don't know if the smell was an issue then. And with the proposed double bagging, what I would like to recommend is that if that did become an issue, that then we would, have to move that location of that dumpster instead of incurring that cost up front before a perceived potential issue. Just have it noted that if that would be an issue, then we would move that location.
But
Why do you think it's going to be a big cost?
Um,
If you're just putting it from one side towards the fence over on the opposite
It's
side?
a permanent fixture, it's a brick
Right.
enclosure and stuff like
Right.
that, so it is a cost for that the business would incur. my recommendation is that it's it's not a known issue yet that it would be of odor issue.
Really?
Well, do you know if it's double bagged and everything? That's all I'm saying. I
I
mean,
pick up mine-
if it's a requirement, then we have to move it. It was a recommendation. I
Yeah.
said, do we see if it's an issue first before we force that location to be changed?
If you want to put that on as a condition, we just have to approve it. I mean, that's something that would have to be added. Make a motion, and is that how we do it on a
The
conditional?
motion would be to amend the draft conditional use permit where the relocation of the dumpster south side to the north side.
That would be a vote on just the amendment then?
On just the
Okay.
amendment.
So if you want to make that motion.
Make that motion.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Lou, you have a comment?
I do. So if you were to move that to the north side, it's more than just the enclosure. Would that be correct? You would have to put a pad there to accommodate for that dumpster to sit on, and then
Correct.
enclose that.
Correct.
And maybe that's where some of the cost is that you're
Correct.
considering. Is there any comment in regards to having to remove the current enclosure and pad in order to make this request work?
There'd be no requirement that the existing dumpster enclosure be removed. They could keep that as a secondary enclosure. But if the council wanted that one removed for aesthetic purposes, that could be part of the amendment.
Thank you.
Eric?
I'm not inclined to vote to make somebody move something that's been holding human waste all along ahead of time on the perceived. If there's a problem, I would make a motion to have them do it if there was a complaint about it or if it did become a problem.
Well, if there is an issue, that's part of the conditions that it,
No, he wanted them to do it ahead of time.
no, I know, but
I would be, if he would amend it to do that, then I would vote for it, but I won't for it.
part of the conditions is trash, correct? So, I mean, if that becomes an issue, that would be part of a condition that they'd have to recommend.
It would come with
They
the
would-
conditional
It already
use.
has the condition there,
Okay,
yeah.
then I'm not in favor of it, I'm just saying that right
The
now.
condition is there on trash,
Right.
you know, it doesn't specifically say odor, but.
Right. Well, I mean, you've now throwing in 15 dogs in and out 4 to 5 times a day that they're going to deal with. I just think the least you can do is move the trash on the other
Yeah.
side.
Well, there's a motion and a second on the floor,
Yeah.
so let's see what happens. Any other comments? Go ahead, Gerald.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with Derek. I don't think I'm in favor of this unless it shows that there's going to need to be, that a need exists to move that.
Okay. Should they add them?
So how would you?
I'm going to vote no on your amendment.
But how would you?
If this,
That will be a separate motion.
okay, if this doesn't pass, there will be a condition added then that if it is an issue that,
Okay.
okay?
I see where you're going with this, and however, I'm not necessarily in favor of it. I would like some clarification in regards to the conditional use. If, for some reason, Dr. Yonke, or the tenant to the south were to have an issue with the odor, what is the process for actually getting that accommodation? Is it a 3-step, you know, a 3 warning, hey, this has got an odor, hey, I fixed it, hey, this has got an odor, I fixed it, hey, this has got an odor, you gotta move it, or how does that go?
I have been out on odor complaints regarding dogs in the city. Yes, I have, and generally, they're not facilities of this size or magnitude. They're individual owners that refuse to pick up their dog waste, and how that's been worked out is the people then end up picking it up and then bagging it better, and you know, maybe keeping their trash cans in the same location, but they just tend to bag them a little bit better. Instead of just putting it in a brown paper bag or something, they actually use a sealed bag. So I think using the sealed bags, they should be okay, but we don't know that at this point. So we're guessing, you know, because this is a different amount of volume than a residential home with 1 or 2 dogs. So, you know, I could see that if the odor becomes an issue, that how I would approach it is have them relocate the dumpster and then have them re-examine how they actually dispose of it as well.
You would recommend, in compliance with the CUP, that after the first complaint, that they would?
Lou, the attorney will answer the question.
I think that what you're asking is, how would we process how bad it would get before they'd have to move it? And you would direct staff to take care of that issue, and if it was not done in a satisfactory manner, would come back to the council. The person that would be complaining would come back here and say, hey, still a problem, and then you would decide and you would direct. So that's how it would work.
Thank you.
Okay.
Bet.
Tom?
I learn something every day about things about here. Now we're talking about waste and all the other stuff. But Dr. Yankee's been there for 30 years. Well, not him, now his daughter's in it because he passed away. And I don't know if we've ever had any complaints about all the diaper wearing little kids running around there and there. So this is a new one for me.
Okay, we have a motion and a second on the floor for moving the dumpster to the north side of the building. Call the roll, please.
Alderman Zwart,
Nay.
Alderman Stray,
Nay.
Alderman Kavieski,
Nay.
Alderman Miller,
Aye.
Alderman Shaw,
Nay.
Alderman Ellis,
Nay.
Alderman Spiegelberg.
Nay.
Okay, now do we want to entertain another motion that would say that if there is an issue,
There's an issue?
so we need another,
So moved.
I didn't make the motion.
Oh, I'd like to make a motion, and if there is an issue, that it comes back in front of us, so that, how would I make that motion?
Well, I think that the motion would be, in the event that there are complaints, and we'll put language in here that staff would, they would have to relocate the dumpster, and staff would work with them as to the location. I'll be glad to work with Jason to give that language into the conditional use permit, but the idea is, hey, if there's a problem, it's got to move.
I like that.
So that's your motion?
That's my motion.
I think that,
I'll second that.
Okay, never
Go
mind.
ahead, Tom.
I think, you've underlying complaints, not a complaint that
No,
you're going to make a
legitimate
move.
complaints.
Right. Like
It's not just going to be
more than
someone says
one.
one thing. no.
Right.
If you go to Chili's and you smell it.
Yeah.
Chili's, yeah. Take it over there. Put it on the grill.
We have a motion and a second on the floor. The conditional use permit, please call the roll.
Alderman Zwart,
Aye.
Alderman Stray,
Aye.
Kavieski,
Aye.
Alderman Miller.
Aye.
Alderman Shaw,
Aye.
Alderman Ellis,
Aye.
Alderman Spiegelberg.
Aye.
Okay, now we have the entire conditional use permit to vote on. Any questions on the entire, go ahead, Mike.
Have we made a motion on that yet?
Not yet, no.
Okay, do you want one now?
No, Mike's got a.
I had a question. How many dogs are we going to have here? I mean, we had 20 overnight. Obviously, this is a training course.
3 overnight.
So how many dogs do you think in a given day are going to be in that facility? 50? 40? 100? 20 overnight, you got 15 shut, I mean, what do you think you're going to be there for? How many dogs are going to be there on a given day?
More the merrier.
It wasn't provided, but there's training, and there's
Right.
a trainer with the dogs. It's more personalized service, so the impression that I got through dealing with the applicant at staff meetings and plan commission and various phone calls, is it's not going to be a large volume of dogs. It's more personalized training, daycare type service, so.
30?
Okay. Okay, any other questions? We do need a motion to approve the conditional use permit
As amended.
as
I'll
amended.
move to approve the conditional use permit for you and your dog at 1265 Corporate Center Drive based on substantial evidence submitted and ordinance compliance.
As amended.
Second.
I'll second.
Okay, we got a motion and a second on the floor. Call the roll, please.
Alderman Zwart.
Aye.
Alderman Stray.
Aye.
Alderman Kavieski,
Aye.
Alderman Miller.
Aye.
Alderman Shaw.
Aye.
Alderman Ellis.
Aye.
Alderman Spiegelberg.
Aye.
Okay, next item is consider act on condominium plat for Village Crossing 2 condominiums at Valley Road and Gold Mellow Drive. We need a motion to approve the condominium plat.
Motion to approve the condominium plat for Village Crossing number 2 condominiums.
Second.
Jason?
Very briefly, this is a more of a housekeeping item. This was a requirement of the Common Council that a condominium plat be created when the general development plans were amended some time ago by this council. So this is the first phase. This would allow for 9 buildings, a total of 18 residential dwelling units. They're duplexes, so 9 times 2 is 18. There's a total of 52 units. Again, this is the first phase. Most likely, there's going to be 2 other additional phases with this, but they do that for financing purposes. Again, this was a requirement, and the Plan Commission did recommend this to the Common Council.
Okay, open it up for questions. Again, this was presented at Plan Commission with unanimous approval. Seeing none, we have a motion and a second on the floor. Call the roll, please.
Alderman Zwart.
Aye.
Alderman Stray.
Aye.
Alderman Kavieski.
Aye.
Alderman Miller.
Aye.
Alderman Shaw.
Aye.
Alderman Ellis.
Aye.
Alderman Spiegelberg.
Aye.
Okay, moving on to new business. We have one item on here. It's consider act on evaluation of alternate options for new public safety building facility. This was requested to be put on, and we discussed, we've been discussing the location for the the new public safety facility, and there's been a lot of dissension and questions revolving around scope, size, budget, location. And we thought before we moved any further with architectural drawings or whatever, we have to really have a direction that we want to go. So I had the clerk say consider act, because the act part would be as if we're going to vote on something, and I'm not sure if we're going to vote on anything tonight to say we're going to form a committee or whatever we're going to do, but most of this is going to be discussion and fact gathering. So I'm going to turn it over to Sarah, and she's going to kick it off, and then if we want to, however we want to handle it, we'll go from there. So.
Thank you, Mayor. As the mayor said, we're really seeking your direction tonight because of the discussion that has been happening recently and possibly looking at other options. So if you do want to do that, we need to have some discussion about how we move forward. I outlined in the memo briefly for you just the history again of the site selection process that we have went through before we purchased the Century site. We had looked at about 5 different locations in the first half of 2017 before we decided to purchase the Century facility, or the former Century facility. So tonight we're really looking for your direction. Do we want to evaluate other options or not? If we do, let's talk about the expectations of how we do that, what kind of evaluation we should do, what are the council's objectives in that evaluation. Are we looking primarily at location, cost, functionality? Do you want to revisit past options? Do you have new ideas for new options? And once we agree on which of those to explore, what type of evaluation do we do? Do we do a high-level discussion about the pros and cons of a site? Do you want to narrow in on a particular site or two and do some further exploration with an architect to do, a layout of a site with some cost estimating? There's a lot of different paths. I think either way, no matter what we decide as we move forward with the facility itself, we're going to need to work on that project cost piece of that. And I think we'll need some meetings to walk through the programming of the building and help you learn the needs of the public safety facility and how that space is arrived at. So we can look at that no matter what direction we go. What do we need right now versus what we're addressing for the future growth of the PD. So we want to work together to define the project with you and so we're just looking for direction tonight on the options of the alternate, if you want to pursue alternate options, and then help us define what that means to you as a council. So I'll turn it back over to you, Mayor.
So far to date, and we've had one official vote on the, on moving forward with the, what we had was schematic drawings to move forward with the architectural drawings, which was defeated, and we were going to look at doing that again, but we decided that, you know, this would be a better idea. I guess the questions that need to be answered is, what is our priority? Is it functionality? Is it location? Is it budget? Is it combination of police and courts? How do we want to handle this? So I guess we need input and have it out in public and see what we want to do. So let's open it up for discussion. Eric.
I think part of it for me anyway, goes back to the needs assessment that we were shown from 2017. Some of the numbers in there I never really have ever agreed with. And the size of the building that we're looking at using seems enormous to me. It's twice the size of, I believe it's twice the size of City Hall, if you add up the first and second floor. It's huge, and when I look at the numbers in the needs assessment, you know, they have some future, you know, 2022, they're talking about adding 11 new parole officers by then as part of this needs assessment. 2 more investigative people. That's 13 people in the next 4 or 5 years to the police force, and I don't think we're ready to add that many. And then if you look out to 2042, you know, another 13 patrol and another 2. I have some of this stuff, and if you guys want to see it, but I'm just saying the numbers seem high, and I don't know where those numbers came from. So I want to find out, make sure our numbers are right before we go and build a building there's a few people walking around it, and hardly anybody's in there. I mean, it could be very empty feeling in there if we went and built it per plan. The other things in there I don't make sense to me are, you know, we don't have the room sizes in there. I'd like to see what that is, but I honestly think that building is too big based on just the dispatch area alone. It looks to me to be about 2,000 square feet of space, and there's probably only gonna be 2 people in there, you know, maybe 3. But the Waukesha County dispatch area is 2,900 square feet. So there's no reason we need similar size for our little town. So I would like to go back first. I think it makes sense to me to go back to the needs assessment and figure out what we really need. This to me looks like a wish list, not a needs list. And if we figure out what we need and truly size it properly, I think we can make better decisions about what we're gonna build. That's all I'm asking, is that we go back and look at this document that we earmarked $10 million for in our budget and didn't talk about it a whole lot.
Chief, can you come up for a minute? Now, just kind of update us. We did an initial needs assessment back a couple years ago. After we hired the architect, they did another needs assessment, correct?
Correct.
So we had 2 needs assessments done already.
Actually,
I'm not sure where they both, you know, I guess, what are the differences and what are the similarities between the 2?
well, actually, go back to Derek's question about manpower. In 2016, we did a manpower study for the department, and that's where our figures are coming from. The immediate needs going out to 21, that's what those numbers are based on. The additional manpower is based on projected growth, which none of us really know what the projected growth or what the projected crime of the community will be. That's what that information is based on. As far as the WSM study goes, WSM came in, met with us, walked through our current facility, compared it to other communities of our size, and determined what our needs would be going 25 years out. FGM came in, looked at the needs assessment, determined that it was fairly accurate.
Okay. And some of the facilities that were toured were for cities our size.
Correct. When we looked at facilities that we toured, being 3 of them, we looked at communities that were our size, 2 down in Illinois and 1 in Middleton. The one in Middleton is actually bigger than what the Century Building would be. But that was a new build facility. And then the 2 in Illinois, one was slightly smaller in our facility, and the other one was slightly bigger in our anticipated facility.
So they're both, they're all 3 of them were in the same
Correct.
basic area.
Correct.
and they were, Middleton is this about the same size as Oconomowoc?
Yes.
Okay. Lou?
Do you know the approximate size of the police department for the city of Waukesha?
No, I don't.
Don't they have multiple?
No, City of Waukesha just has one that
Just
they
the one?
built in 1992, I believe.
I believe it's approximately the same size as we're looking at here. And we have, the city of Waukesha has 72,000 people. And with anticipated growth, we're nowhere near that. So to Derek's statement about actual size, and Chief, I understand fully the amount of time that you have invested in this project, as well as other members of staff. And I truly appreciate that. But if you look at the history of this community and the ability for us to grow the police department with the growth that we've had, it doesn't match up to what we're anticipating based on these needs analysis that were in front of us. And I think that's where some of the questions that Derek mentioned come into play. What is anticipated and what's reality in regards to what the city can handle? And from a budget standpoint, because it's not just the cost of the building and then its operation, as you know, if me personally, if I can give you 40 officers tomorrow, but I do it. But we can't afford to bring on 40, and I don't know if we can afford as a city. And we've done a great job maintaining a high level of safety and making that one of our predominant services that we provide. So I appreciate that. I just don't anticipate the size as it currently stands with 39,800 square feet. The needs assessment also shows, I believe, 24,000 square feet of office space based on the 20-year need. You have auxiliary space around that 24,000, which takes you to almost 37,000 square feet, which is, in regards to your comment for direction, I think there should be some discussion and final agreement on consolidation and centralization, or maintaining the courts offsite or not offsite. We've had discussion. We haven't had final votes on any of this. And from the time that we first discussed this and procured that property to today, there's more information in front of us. We've had more time to evaluate it, and there are additional options in front of us. So you can kick this can down the road forever and a day, and I don't think anybody in this community wants to see that. So as we're discussing what we're looking to do moving forward, I'd like to propose that we do it in a timely fashion. I think we owe that to those who are vested in it and to our community. And I think this body has the ability to vet those options and give you a direction by the end of the year to move forward. Size of the building, size of staff that occupies that building, costs associated with it, utilization of whatever property that building goes on. I'm not adamantly opposed to this particular location. I have voiced concern in the past about the use of that waterfront. And I think there is a way to take a look at one of those options and moving the building and realizing additional value associated with potential private development along that lakefront. So those are some of the things that I have voiced concern to the mayor and to you over the last several months. I'd like to see those as some of the criteria associated with what we evaluate for the options moving forward. More of a statement than a question, I guess.
Yeah, I guess the question is, how do we move forward? Go ahead, Kevin.
Okay, I have a question for you. Outside of here, how many other venues do you have? I don't need to know specifics, but how many other venues are there around the city that you're utilizing right now?
Well, we have the impound garage.
Hmm?
We have the impound lot. So those would be outside of this building, but you can look in this building here and we're spread out across 3 different floors, the basement, the first floor, the second floor.
Mhm.
If you count our radio equipment, that's up in the 3rd floor.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and that now would all be centrally located at one spot?
Correct.
And the impound yard, I know you probably can't give me specifics, but how large is that right now?
It's part of the DPW impound yard.
Okay. And how much of that do you use?
It depends, it varies. Like right now, I think I have 2 vehicles in there.
Mhm.
When we get our first winter snow and we see how many abandoned vehicles there are around the city, we might get 8 or 10 vehicles in there that we'll have till spring or maybe early summer.
Mhm.
So it
Mhm.
varies.
And as far as the other equipment that you had mentioned on the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd floor, how large is that square footage downstairs? Do we know?
Our total square footage is about 4,500 square feet.
Okay.
That you occupy, but you have evidence.
this building,
and
correct.
You have things stored in other areas, yeah.
Right, that's not including the other things that are stored in other areas.
Correct. That's our police station facility to the rear of City Hall.
Right, this right
Right.
here. And I believe is that including the garage too? Because I think there's
Yes.
2 garages, right?
Yes.
Okay.
It's a garage and then the sally port, which is where we bring prisoners in.
Now, is there a place at this point in time where they can be held?
No, in 2009, when we ran out of space, we elected to take our cells out, create an officer workroom, and just have a booking room.
So where do they go now?
Well, we either book them and release them from here, or we take them right out to Waukesha County. We don't have any holding cells here anymore.
And with the new place, there would be holding cells?
Correct.
Thank you. Eric, you had your hand up?
I was just, with the question about the impound lot, I was wondering why it's critical to have those cars on site. If we're doing a downtown location, you know, I'm trying to think of ways that we can reduce some of the things that we don't need. Also off-site evidence for long-term storage. I don't think we need a brand-new building to do that if there's an option for something you don't use very often. So,
Well,
two questions.
I'll address the impound area first. First of all, it's for efficiency to have it on site. You know, if we have it directly on site, we can release vehicles right from the police department versus having someone coming to get their vehicle. They have to come to the police station, complete all their paperwork. Then we have to find an officer that can meet them at the impound lot to release their vehicle at that point. Then we have the situation where a lot of times these cars don't start, so they're out there for a period of time messing around trying to start their car. We got to stay with them. Whereas we could possibly have an officer or a community service officer sit in the lot with that person while they release the vehicle. That's that part of it. When we talk about evidence storage outside of the police department, we can look at our evidence storage garage where we currently have 2 vehicles. One vehicle is from a homicide, one's from a serial burglary. We have concerns about chain of custody by not having those on site with you. Those are our concerns.
I'm talking about the stuff where you have to save it forever and you're never gonna touch it for, you know what you have some things that you
Well,
said you have to
do.
keep forever.
We have to,
until the person dies or something like that, or I don't know, you told me that.
we have to retain biological evidence from offenses, felony offenses, until the person is released from prison, probation, and parole, or they pass away. And
Isn't there
you
places we could store that? Does the county have a facility for that or not? Or is that
You
not
could
something-
probably rent somewhere to store it, I guess.
Okay.
But again, you're gonna be looking at chain of custody. If that case gets reopened, they appeal it, and evidence looked at again, it's not on site, it's not secure, you run that risk.
Okay.
And you'd have to have a secure site, right?
It'd have to be
It'd have to
secure,
be a
yes.
secure site. So I mean, we don't have to get into the operations of the police department. I think, you know, I don't think that's the purpose of this discussion. The discussion here is to figure out what's our direction. And I guess the first item, and one of the things that affected most people, I think, was the budget. I mean, we arbitrarily came up with a $10 million number as our maximum. Is that something that we want to maintain? Because if it is, that gives us a scope of what we can try to accomplish for that dollar amount. Lou?
To the scope, I think that is part of what we need to be on the same page for. And I understand in conversation, based on the size of the facility that we are currently entertaining, there are some opportunities to do things that weren't in the original scope that we had to set aside $10 million for. That includes the EOC, that includes the IT, that includes the courts. So we have scope that we
EOC
need.
was in the first.
EOC was part of
EOC
it.
was in the 10 million.
The EOC was part of the community room at the time,
Yep, correct.
but now it's gonna be part of the courts.
Same room.
Purpose.
But if the courts don't go over, and we, as the discussion of options, decide to take a look at some of the things that have previously been discussed, and potentially utilizing the community center as an example, as an EOC, whether that be valid or not.
Could I address that?
Yes, sir.
Well, first of all, we'd have to have a generator in the entire building. We'd have to have access to our records management system in the police station, which is currently in the police station, which means there'd be certain CJIS requirements for wiring, security of that system. And we'd have to have all of our equipment there ready to go.
Sure. And again,
One last
yes,
thing.
sir.
You're putting it in basically a stick-built structure. What's the greatest threat probably to our community? Probably a tornado.
Understood. Again, there's, out of the things that I just listed, the courts weren't part of it. The IT consolidation wasn't part of it. And as we've entertained the budget as it's been presented, those have been separated out from the overall cost. So I'm just suggesting that as we go through this and allocate, whether it's $10 million or $12 million, a significant expenditure, that as a group, we can show the community that we've vetted all of the options to the logical conclusion, to the value that is being provided. And I don't have a problem if that's $10 million or $12 million based on what is being provided and based on a clear, identified scope. And again, I think we've expanded the scope. $683,000 roughly for the courts, $170,000 roughly for the IT.
120.
120. We need to really take, not a long time, a defined time, a couple months, put all of those on the table, vote for them appropriately as they're being entertained. The location is secure, it's not going anywhere. If we can do something that brings more value or lowers our overall cost burden, we can save the taxpayer money to the point made that you never really save money if you delay. We could, because we could allocate those funds differently. We could take a different approach, potentially. And for the next 60 days, I'd rather go into the community, to those I serve, and say, we gathered all the information, we came together, and we approved it in the best interest of the community to serve and protect, and based on the financial burden that puts on the community that we live in. And that's what I would look for in tonight's agreement, or however that's structured.
Well, how do we want to do it? I guess we have to answer questions. I mean, it's been determined many times we have to decide sooner or later.
Yes.
Sarah, did you have something you wanted to add?
Yeah, just based on what I'm hearing right now, what I think I'm hearing is possibly scheduling a working meeting of our council where we can work through the need of the facility, the spaces that are in there, and those elements, because no matter where it goes, what site or whatever, we need to work through that together. So we could schedule something to walk through that detail, Mayor. Yeah, yeah, and it would probably be a longer session that we would need to schedule, and work through that element with all of you.
But we'd have to know what the criteria is. I guess the whole thing would be scope. budget. I don't
I'd
think location really
I
makes that
think-
much difference at that point.
Locations might, though, I mean,
Okay,
based on,
scope, budget, location.
we should have all the potential locations on the table too, I think, just from,
And I guess, yeah, scope, budget, location.
I mean, we obviously know the locations that we looked at previously, if there's different,
Well, we'd have
There's-
to,
you
we'd
know,
have to.
did we ever
we'd
look
have
at the
flush
one
that out.
the closest to us?
We'd have to consider all locations.
Because
Yes.
that one makes a lot of sense to me, and I'd really like to flush that through good.
Yeah, we'd have to consider all locations. Go ahead.
I've been a proponent for moving this forward into the bidding process, but after the last meeting, I just felt like there was so much division between us as a council. And this is a decision that's going to be made for the next several decades for our community. And if we could possibly all come together and feel better about what we're putting out there, I think it would be advantageous for us to do that. That said, we would need to put a time frame on this, 45 days or 60 days. You know, I've beat a dead horse. The longer we wait on this, interest rates are going up, construction costs are going up. But I'd be willing to say, if we can put a time frame on this, 45 days or 60 days, consider other options, give Sarah some direction, let's sit down, flesh through some things, make a good decision, and move on.
What we need to do is have a time when we all are available soon. And set up a time, and this is gonna be a 5 o'clock till we're done meeting. And there'll be an agenda, which would, first thing would be scope. Because I think that's the most important, is what's gonna be included in this. Second would be budget of what we wanna spend, and location. And any other things that may come up, I guess. Kevin?
I have to agree with you. I'm an action guy. I don't want to prolong this. I was actually thinking within the next couple of meetings that we come to some sort of
Well,
an
it's not gonna
agreement.
be at a council
I
meeting, it's gonna
understand.
be a special meeting.
I understand that. But
That would be open to the public. It would be an open meeting.
but I think we do need to put a time limit on this because I do not want to be dragging this out.
No.
Not at all.
I'm just looking at calendars, my calendar.
Mayor, we can,
We'll figure that out.
yeah,
but-
we can have.
I mean, I'm thinking with the holidays coming up, we want to do this, we don't want to wait till December, I don't think we want to do this in November. So I think we'll sit down and we'll come up and we'll question everybody of when they're available. Attendance would be, I can't say mandatory because I can't say everybody's going to be here, but I think it would be highly recommended that you're there because that's what we're going to decide. And if they can't make it there at that meeting, something else must be much more important. Shirley?
Well, I will also agree that the longer we wait, the more expensive this gets. Now, I think a lot of this stuff that you're talking about putting on an agenda to discuss, my feeling is we made that decision when we agreed to purchase that site for the sole purpose of moving the public safety building there. I feel like we really did this already.
I'm not disagreeing with you.
I'm
But we're
ready
not,
to move ahead.
but we're not moving it forward, so we have to do what we have to
I
do
know.
to either move it forward or do whatever. Go
But
ahead, Mike.
my comment is
Yeah.
that we did have a vote to purchase this for the specific activity, or the purpose of this was to put the safety building there.
Yes.
We were gonna move the police station over there. We had the vote to do that. So I think we had decided that already.
Yeah. Mike?
Did the tours and checked out 3 cities that are equivalent to us, and we did the assessment, and I thought, same thing, as I thought we were all on the same page. But yeah, if this is the route we gotta go, this is the route we gotta go.
Yeah.
We gotta get something done soon though.
We did do it.
You're on.
We did do it anyway, but it's, $10 million. That was the settling point that, flew, where it was gonna go, but we settled on no more than 10 million. And it's 12 and a half.
It's not 12 and a half, but
Well,
we don't have to argue about it now.
I'm not
Those,
gonna-
those are things we'll have to
I'm just-
decide.
I'm not arguing, I just said that's what we decided.
Yeah. Go ahead, Lou.
They were in there.
I just want to say, I appreciate the fact that this is on the agenda today. I know this has been highly discussed. I think what we're talking about right now will be appreciated by the community as a whole, by council. And I hope that when we go through these options, we go through them with an open mind and not with a predetermined conclusion that we're going to stay the course. And again, I'm not saying that the course that we're on is 100% wrong. But to Charlie, to your point, we have discussed several of the options that are on the table, but several of the options that were on the table previously have changed with time. So let's have those discussions the way they stand in front of us now and just be done with it and move on.
Okay, go ahead, Charlie.
What are those options that changed?
Potentially there is land that was considered south in the southern part of the city, and I don't know if I can mention any of the names associated with those, so I won't. But there were calls made that provide some information that maybe the pricing associated with those properties are in flux and potentially lowered. There's new property that has come to light via email to council as a whole. There is potential for reconfiguration of the site that we own now, and best utilization of that site, not only for the police department, but for tax base. There are several.
Those are things we'll discuss.
And those are things that we'll
Yeah.
discuss, and I appreciate the fact that we'll discuss them. And I am 100% committed with open mind that if it doesn't make sense, based on the facts that we have in front of us right now, that we will continue to check them off and move forward in a direction that does make sense, both from an operations standpoint and a financial standpoint. Because once we issue that $10 million bond, it's roughly, Lori, 34 cents of debt service. And in our current budget, it's 10 cents. So we're looking at 3.5 times our current debt service on this project. And I think we owe it.
It's a significant investment. It is, and there's no one saying it's not.
Yep.
But one of the things that we have to agree on too, at this point, or not at this point, but chances are everybody's not going to agree.
Yes.
And we're gonna have to allow majority rule.
Yep.
And that's something that we have to do. If it's majority rule, whoever gets what they want, I guess. And whoever doesn't would agree that this is where we're gonna move forward.
Right on.
I mean, we're not going to keep rehashing this just because it didn't turn out the way some people wanted it.
Yep.
Go ahead, Derek.
I want to thank you too for giving us this opportunity. I felt like we didn't get an opportunity to discuss it before.
And maybe you didn't, and maybe that's
I
my
felt like it was kind of put on a platter for us to vote on. And when we purchased that building, I thought the building was too big for what we needed. Charlie, I remember when you said, it's huge. I remember you looking me in the eye and go, that building is huge. And it is big, it's almost an acre. But anyway, my point was when we bought it, I thought maybe we could do more than just a police station there, because I thought there was enough room there to do more stuff. So that's why I have concerns about it. But whatever we end up deciding at the end of the day, I'm great with.
Okay.
I just want the chance to really hash it out and go through it, because I don't think we did when we did the budget and put the $10 million in it. We kind of were saying we had a lot of comments, but nothing that got filtered through.
And I think agreement has to be there too, that we get this accomplished in a short period of time.
Right, I agree.
Yep.
We talked at some point about a resolution of necessity so that individuals like Lou would be able to speak to people outside of the council meetings? Is that something that we would?
Lou doesn't speak to people outside the council.
But the council can entertain then a
The
direction.
city attorney, the city attorney can do it.
Okay.
And that's something that we'd have to have a specific location before we did that.
Okay.
Okay? So what we'll do is, we'll sit down, we'll go through schedules and agendas and pick some dates that everybody is available for a significant amount of time in the evening. And sit down and hash it out. We'll open it up, we'll do it in conference room 3, and we'll make sure we have enough people available and go from there. Okay?
Thank you.
Good. So there's no action on anything tonight on that. Staff reports?
Nothing this evening.
Reports and comments from the mayor. With the success of the last town hall meeting I had, I'm going to have another one next Tuesday. Community Center, Conference Room C, 5 to 7 or later, depends on who shows up. Anybody's invited. Council's invited if they want to come. I know we had a couple members there last time. Questions, any questions? We can talk about the budget, we can talk about the police department, we can talk about anything that comes up. So that's going to be next Tuesday from 5, starting at 5 and going till 7 at least, and maybe longer. And we'll do a public notice on that and get it on the website.
Yes.
That's all I have right now. Comments from Alderman. Go ahead, Derek.
I had sent an email to Sarah because the RFP went out for street projects. I don't know if any of you guys saw that. Next year's street projects, and it went out for design services and construction management. And as you guys, and I asked to have those split up. I won't vote for any firm on that with both those services combined. And I've been through this before, and I don't think you guys understand, but it's keeping a separation of duties that I have a problem with. The firms that, typically, the state for sure hires different firms to do the design work than do the construction and management and engineering. Most counties do, and from what I've been told, most municipalities do that as well. We, on the other hand, bundle it all together, and I feel that that's not a good separation of duties. I'd love to see larger projects split up between design and construction management and inspections. I may not be able to vote on that, but if I do get to vote, if it goes through, I would vote no for no matter who's selected. So I'm hoping that you guys, if I'm not here, will understand where I'm coming from.
Okay.
I appreciate the fact that you're holding your session on Tuesday. I think that's great for the community, and I think there was a focus that I had in regards to that as well. Last year, you allowed me to use some staff time to provide information to community in regards to TIF and what that is and major developments in downtown. I appreciate you allowing me to utilize some staff time this coming October 30th at 6:30 at the community center to discuss and review our city planning, our areas of focus for development and redevelopment, and what plans we have in place and why we're updating our master plan. Having those conversations outside City Hall, I think, is refreshing and productive for the community. So I appreciate that very much.
It's good input for the citizens. They can come in a more open atmosphere. Any other comments or questions? Any other reports? Seeing none, we need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Aye.
Aye. What's the score?
1-0.
Dodgers?
Whatever.